All right. We'll note that at 18:03 we convene the International Falls Economic Development Authority for Tuesday, February 21st. Start off with anybody in the audience that would like to address the board or the authority.
Mr. Mayor. President. I'd like to add an item to the agenda, if I may. The $300 for the International Falls Sportsman Expo. Sportsperson Expo.
That is...
Other business, maybe?
Under other business. Okay, sounds good. Do we need that in motion, or no?
I'll make the motion to add that to the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second to add $300 discussion of $300 for the outdoor expo. Any discussion? Not. All those in favor signify by the sign.
Aye.
Opposed? It's on there.
But that's just to put it on the agenda.
Put it on the agenda, right? Yep. Okay. Now we'll move to minutes of January 17th regular meeting. Motion to accept. Motion and a second to approve the regular meeting minutes of January 17th. Discussion. All in favor signify by the sign.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next item on the agenda are the financial reports. Under A, the January 31st report you have in front of you. Motion to approve the financial report.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been gone for 12 days. It might have been 12 years now. I'm trying to remember. Didn't we not approve funding for the cold box? The loan? Did we approve that yet? Did we say didn't we discuss it about taking it out of here?
Yes.
Oh, did we agree to that? Okay, that's
It
where
was
it's
all
gonna come.
contingent on everything going through
Okay, I just
county
wanted,
and deed
yeah,
first.
okay. I just wanted the status of it. Because what I was going to say as treasurer is if we decide to do that, we should have a restriction on this fund balance.
As far as the
As the equity goes, we need a restriction. But that, we don't need a restriction until we actually do it, but, yeah. It would be 200,000, right?
Yes.
Yeah, if we do that.
That's what we committed to.
No, we didn't commit to that.
Up to.
Up to. Yeah, and then I think I sent out a report after I looked at the cold box balance sheet, and they did have $350,000 in cash at the end of the year. Okay. And their annual expenditures were $168,000 a year. That means they have twice the operating expenditures, even if they lost all their revenue for a year. They could operate 2 years after that, even though their expenditures would go down. So that's a very high balance to maintain. So we didn't decide on 200,000. I think the question I had was, couldn't the cold weather testing center provide some of that capital for the second cold box itself without coming to the city and county for that? That was my point.
We can discuss that when we get to that point.
Yeah.
Okay. More discussion on the financials.
Mr. President, with regard to that, I would ask that if we're going to have that discussion, that we ask for the treasurer and the executive director of the Kuching Economic Development Authority to be here for that discussion.
Sounds fair.
Along with the business plan, which we wanted to take a look at. which they have to do for the grant anyway.
More discussion? Call for the question. All in favor signify by the sign.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Under B, can it help me there? Adopt the resolution approving accounts payable. That's a separate, or is that? Oh, I think.
We have no accounts payable.
Okay. So that's okay. Next on the list is to accept Ward Merrill's letter of resignation from the board.
I will accept it with regret.
I'll second that with the recommendation that we send a letter of thanks for his service, directing that letter.
Is that okay with the motion maker?
Oh, we haven't? Well, that was an oversight, right?
Yeah. I'll-
Motion and a second to send a letter, a letter along with it,
Thanks.
acknowledging his work. Any more discussion on that? Call the question. All those in favor signify by the sign.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And now consider a process to fill vacancies on the board.
We have a lot of them to fill, don't we?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
just for the EDA's general information, I believe the bylaws allow up to 12 members to be on the EDA advisory board, and that doesn't include the president, who typically sits in on those meetings. Right now, with Ward Merrill choosing not to have his term renewed, and also Hugh Haller, his term expires at the end of 2016, and I haven't spoken with him. In the past, he's agreed to want to stay on the EDA advisory board. So I just was envisioning that we would have a discussion about whether or not we want to advertise for candidates to sit on the EDA advisory board. We've done this in the past. I believe we got 2 applications for 4 or 5 openings in the past, and both Shannon Arnold and Cindy Strand were appointed to the last ones, but we can have up to 12, and right now we have 5, I think, with Ward Merrill's resignation.
Yeah, 5.
Joanne Dornecker has already resigned, and I crossed her name off the list there. Right now, Alan Rasmussen is a member, and he apparently...
I have a question. Is there any work being done?
The work that we've talked about trying to get done is preparing the next version of the strategic action plan for the International Falls EDA. Typically, the advisory board will prepare a recommendation for that, submit it to the EDA for the EDA to adopt. It's been a 2 or 3 year action plan. I think the EDA's actually has been a 2-year plan. Right now, in our past discussions, and Commissioner Droba can refresh my memory, but I think what we talked about doing is really trying to limit the scope of that, and then try and incorporate some of the findings that come out of the comprehensive planning process as it relates to economic development and redevelopment into the new strategic action plan. So it would be something more limited, and it was to be tested again. And to be honest, I think it's really dependent upon maybe staff to try and create some kind of a framework and some suggestions, and then have the EDA advisory board tweak it before a recommendation is brought forward to this body.
Don't run a department on volunteers. Doesn't work. You need staff. Just doesn't work. All know that, right? So it's not going to go anywhere without staff. And that's why you're not getting people to apply, because there's nothing happening.
You brought up about the comprehensive plan, and that would have been a question I would ask, is it, it makes sense to just kind of wait and see what shakes out with that before you bore into, asking for volunteers to fill up this when I'm not exactly sure what the plan is.
The other part of it is to just, review what's going on with the Destiny drivers, and there's 10 of them at Voyage Forward, and see how those various elements of those Destiny drivers apply to International Falls proper, and incorporate that into an action plan as well. This latest initiative that we talked about earlier at the council meeting was something that was really promoted and sponsored through KEDA and through the county KDA, so our EDA hasn't been involved in some of the initial.
You don't have staff. Who's to be involved? You're going to ask volunteers to come in and go to those meetings?
As a former member of the advisory board, I was incepted, unfunded, and the advisory board with real leaders in the community, but they're all very busy people. And they're without a director, there wasn't much for them to do, so they were kind of wasting their time. And so I think that's Ollie and Ford were active members of that. I would say leave it in limbo. Out in terms of what's going to happen, what's going to happen with Voyage Forward and the Destiny drivers, what's going to happen with at least what is that
When it comes to community development for the city, a KEDA board, the county board members on that board aren't going to support that.
Well, I don't think that. I think KEDA, a lot of their projects that involve the city and they do the city and the county. I don't think there's any looking for projects. It's in KEDA, this whole Granite Digital thing has, mostly with that, Paul and the mayor, and you get the coal box. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on that KEDA's a part of and working with all the city and benefit the city.
True.
But I think that on this advisory group, the perception was alone economic development group for the city that was really go in a different direction. Council changes their mind about what direction they're going to go.
I agree with you, Steve, that there is economic development focused on the city from KEDA. But when you get into community development, issues like sidewalks and parks and that, the KEDA board, the county board, is not going to put resources into that I believe, from listening to county board members.
Somewhat off the subject of how to fill the vacancies with that advisory board, but up until last month, I went to all of the meetings. I think I missed one, and we have 4 or 5 people that actively want to do things. Specifically, Shannon Arnold, Eric Johnson, and Cindy Strand. they actively want to do something in our community. They are on that board because they want to give back to the community. They want to figure out a way to put the Voyage Forward Destiny drivers that are active to our community into our not a comprehensive plan, but our strategic action plan for the EDA. That's what they want to do. But somehow we're getting mixed up between communicating with them as well, and therefore communicating with us, because there is a gap. We do have people that are on that board now that actively want to be there, and I realize that there was past which a decision was made by the city council that caused some people to not want to serve on that board. I understand that, and that's real. But there are people that want to be there now, and if we can advertise to find some more people, the Borderland Young Professionals, they want to be active in our community. We have other younger groups that want to build into our community. Somehow tap into that energy of these people that are trying to build their businesses here. I don't see a reason why we wouldn't try to advertise again, and maybe it's a couple conversations with people. Maybe this board needs to reach out for those people to come into this. But I understand there was a move in our EDA and with the city council on how we were going to move forward, but to say that they're spinning their wheels because we don't have communication between this board and what they want to do. They actively want to put together a strategic action plan. That conversation has been going on. But how do we make that next leap? Yeah, we don't have staff, but I know Eric Johnson specifically said he's willing to write it up and work that to bring to this board. So unless we can have a sit-down meeting with everybody and see where we're at, I think the whole conversation is spinning our wheels. Because they want to do stuff. The 5 people that are on that board right now want to do stuff. And we're not having the conversation with them of how we're going to work with them. So yeah, we are spinning our wheels.
Dan?
Yeah. Now, you mentioned how Voyage Forward ties into this. They were asking $5,000 and as a result of the last meeting that I happened to be in attendance, Mr. Welcome went out the door and with the decision that he was going to do it on going to the individuals themselves rather than going to the governmental authorities for the additional funding. So the question I have is, I haven't heard anything about a Voyage Forward. I don't know what the financial condition is, but based on the lack of what I've seen in the last 2 months, and I've been doing a lot of traveling the last 2 months, I don't know whether they're at the edge or whether the report is getting ready to be thrown into the basket or what. So to me, there is so many people are involved in it that it's unrealistic to expect that you're going to get a group of people together active in their own deal and come to meetings here to try to figure out what's going on to establish a policy and direction and an action here for the future. So if you know, I would appreciate it. What is happening with the Voyagers Forward as far as finance? Are they at the end of the rope or not?
They would have, I think Mr. Welcome has got his own, I assume, checkbook that he's operating with. I mean, they are not a government entity.
Right.
It's a group that's appointed themselves, and therefore I guess I don't see don't see us funding that kind of an operation.
I don't see it either, so.
Just a minute. Didn't the emergency response team, which was the mayor and Wade Pavlik, the commissioner, and on it, Harley?
That was at the end, it was
Right.
Councilor
There
Taylor.
were 4 people, and with their recommendation, we spent $170,000 of city money to fund, and $280,000 of federal money, and another $170,000 worth of our tax money at the county level to fund this project. And one of the results of it was Voyage Forward, and it got the approval of the council and the county board and the KEDA and everybody, because that's what we spent money to do. And now we're disavowing it and act like it's a self-appointed group? No, it's not a self-appointed group. It was nurtured and pushed by the very county and the city council through the KEDA and through that $500,000 that we spent. What I think is terrible about this whole thing is we haven't given the Voyage Forward effort any funds. And we should do that. We should give them the money they need to carry those initiatives forward that are grassroots, are inclusive, include people in the community who want to make improvements rather than just throwing cold water on it, which is what we've been doing.
President, the intent of the Voyage Forward was to secure studies, to secure surveys, to secure information from the citizens on where they thought economic development should go in the community. There is no governmental structure for Voyage Forward. It was a study, it was citizens volunteered to input, which was what was desired. We have all of that information, we have the surveys, and it's been given to the governmental entities to utilize. The monies that have been raised, they're running individuals are running websites out trying to show that there's economic development in the community. We already have a website under the Kuching Economic Development Authority. Why do we need a second one on economic development? We continue to spend money and double it up because somebody else wants to take and have something to say about something, and that's just not the way to do business.
God forbid that we have the average citizen have something to say. This is a grassroots effort. We have people.
I'm going to get us back on task here. I think we got off track. We're on the issue of what we're going to do so far as filling vacancies on the board, and I'd like to get back to that because we could talk Voyage Forward all night. I don't think this is the place we need to do that. What are your wishes so far as with the board?
I would like to see a meeting with the EDA Board of Directors and the Advisory Board and work together to see what they envision the future, what we envision the future, and possibly advertise after that. But I think before we make any decisions on this board, I really would like to have the Advisory Board part of that decision making because it affects them more so than it does us.
It makes a whole lot of sense to me. I don't know how anyone else feels, but I really do think that we need to talk with them and find out, what their interest is and what they feel about it to continue on, because I think that, if we don't do that, we may have more resignations.
Well, we owe them that.
I feel we owe them that too.
Oh, that's fine. Let's set up a meeting.
Need a motion for that?
I would move to set up a meeting with the EDA Advisory Board, a joint panel.
Second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second to have a meeting between this board and the advisory board. Any discussion?
Question about when you'd like to have that meeting. Do you want to have it at our next EDA meeting, which would be their EDA advisory board meeting would be on the 14th, the regular meeting at 8 o'clock a.m., which is a Tuesday morning on March 14th. Or we could do it, before or after the next council meeting, which is March 6th, or you could set a special date.
Suggestion would be either after a city council meeting, if it was the first one of the month, or at this board, because we've had, in the past, there has been joint meetings where we've asked the EDA to come down and speak with them, and it was me. So maybe it's easier to have the advisory board come to this meeting rather than this board go to the advisory board meeting.
Want to wait till your regular EDA meeting, which would be March 20th, the third Monday of the month, or do you want to do it after the March 6th city council meeting and do a special meeting?
I think sooner.
I think the
Do the 6th, that way I've got a better idea how they feel so far as me moving to the next board meeting.
Drags on too long. Let's do it the next meeting.
Everybody?
Yes.
Okay. I have a motion. I'll call for the question. Those in favor signify with a sign.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is the additional item put on the agenda for talk about $300 for the outdoor expo.
Since I put the motion on there, I mean, for all the good reasons the mayor would vote for it at the city level, I think we can duplicate that rationale right here, except that it fits our mission better in this body. And since it is, they raise money and then donate it to all the different nonprofits in the community. It's a community development exercise, which is one of the important pieces of the EDA. It's not just economic development, it's community development. So it fits in this. So I would recommend and make the motion that we expend $300 in funding for this sponsorship.
Motion on the table to donate $300 to the outdoor expo. Is there a second? For a second. Let's call for a second. Motion fails, lack of second.
I have a question. If you would support it, why wouldn't you support it here?
Other business to come before the board? Anyone else in the audience want to speak? Adjourn the meeting at 18:32.